the show, we'll take some audience questions for Dr. Noddings. If you have a question, we'll bring the microphone to you.
It's on. You're good.
Hello? Oh, I'll be the first to go. I'm David Lee Carlson. I'm an assistant professor here. We're delighted that you're here at Arizona State University. It was great to hear you. I have two questions, two parts, but they're very easy, I promise. The first question is, you sort of alluded to an educated person, so I want you to sort of talk more about what is an educated person. And if you could...
An easy question.
Yeah,
right?
it's an easy one. See, I was being fun. And if you could pick a person alive who is sort of an exemplar, besides yourself, of course, of an educated person. And then the second question is, talk about a piece of fiction that has influenced your work, where you read and it really influenced your work. I'm curious about that. I know it's two parts, but I can't remember the second part. So those two questions. Thank you.
Well, let me start with the last part, a piece of fiction that I've incorporated into my work. What comes to mind immediately, and later I'll think of something else, no doubt, but Samuel Butler's The Way of All Flesh. I've used that quite often in my work, and the reason is that the main character in it is really abused by his parents. They are what I would call virtue carers, but not good virtue carers. They had utter control over their child. The father beat the little boy if he didn't learn fast enough, but everything that was done to him was done for his own good, right? And the poor kid believed this, believed that these things were being done for his own good. And it wasn't until the narrator of the story came into his life to show him what caring really means. I don't think they used the word. That has been very influential. And there are others. The little book by Simon Wiesenthal, The Sunflower, I've used quite a bit and will use again in this discussion of war and peace. So I draw on fiction quite a lot. Now the first question, the hard one, how would I describe an educated person? I think I'd hesitate to do it. Yeah, I would hesitate to do it because there are so many different forms of educated people. And one of the things that worries me is that when we get into a field, we become excited about it and think that everybody else should learn all of this too. Here is an example. If math teachers in the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics get together and ask, what should kids learn in math? They start out very reasonable. You know? They're very reasonable. They have to be able to count and add and subtract and whatnot. And about 35 minutes into the discussion, they'll say they should have to know the difference between a definite and an indefinite integral. That somehow becomes the mark of an educated person, to know that. Well, see, now you've gone too far. Or people in music education. Do you know that there are some people who don't know that Beethoven wrote 5 piano concertos? How can they go on living? They don't know this. That temptation to take our own field and suppose that there's something wrong with people who don't know what we know, I would like to avoid. So give me time and we could talk about people in fiction and in real life who I think are models of educated people. But it would be hard. I don't want them to become recipes, okay? Yeah. Think of the James brothers, William James and Henry James. A lot of people have said that Henry should have been the psychologist and William the novelist. So they have something in mind when they look at them and say that. But to me, yeah, they're models of educated people.
Hi, my name is Maria Paredes, and
Hold the mic up closer.
okay, I have a passion for studying parent-teacher relationships,
Yeah.
Especially K-12. But because of your experiences and your studies in feminist theory, what have been your experiences, and what would you? What can you help me understand more from your perspective and your experiences in parent-teacher relationships, especially with differing social classes, middle-class teacher, lower middle-class parent?
Yeah, I've seen some very interesting accounts of work in this area. One of them, as I recall, was done in the Seattle area, where the principal decided to really open the school up, to have a coffee or tea hour in the morning, and one again later in the afternoon, and to encourage parents to come in and just chat about things, to let them know that they were welcome there. And I think it was in this same account, but it might not be, involving parents in, in the actual school activities. She learned that if you're working with parents who are not well educated, it makes them extremely nervous if you ask them to be involved in curriculum decisions of any kind, because they know they're not up to it. And so they would much rather be asked to be chaperoned on a bus trip, for example, to help out somehow in the classroom with something that they are able to do. And as they begin to gain strength in that, then they may be involved in some of these other discussions. So I found that very valuable. And there was another one in San Jose, where the principal recommended that the school board buy a house in the neighborhood and make it into a, excuse me just a minute, make it into a weekday boarding house. Now I understand that more of this is going on in the country, but I haven't actually seen a case like that. She recommended it because some parents had actually told her that they just couldn't get up in the morning to get their kids to school. And there were a lot of reasons for it. Some you could excuse, some were pretty bad, but they had confessed this. And so she thought, well, if we have a place, it was like a boarding school, where parents could drop their kids off on Sunday night and pick them up again on Friday afternoon, this would really help a lot. She was fired. That's the end of that. So, but there are ideas like that out there that are worth considering, and principals should consider having more open forums on topics, not just PTA, raising money and having cookies and whatnot, but open forums on topics. Try to explain to parents what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then listen to them, because they may have objections and you want to hear those. So we could spend a lot of time on that topic. It's a big one.
Joshua Barnett, an assistant professor here. I'm curious, with your body of work, if you could describe for us what you view as the purpose of public education, and then given the conversation about what's gone wrong with reform, if you could talk to us about maybe 3 things that are going right. What are the 3 things that you think we're doing well presently?
Well, I know that I wrote somewhere that our aim should be to produce caring, competent, loving, and lovable people. wouldn't be a bad aim. But you could put it in more politically acceptable terms, I guess. I think we should be trying to produce citizens who have a commitment to the common good. We're neglecting that very, very badly. So interested in producing people with high intellectual capabilities. But look at some of the people we're producing. Graduates of some of our finest universities who don't give a fig for their fellow people. So to produce people who can think critically, I wouldn't make that the top aim, but I'd make it one of them. To think, at least think critically, yes, to have this commitment to the common good, to have some sense of what makes for a happy life. All of those things, I think, should be built into what we're doing. In fact, if you go back to 1918 and look at the cardinal principles that were produced there, you see that the people who were thinking then were ahead of what we're doing now. They said, what are the big things we should be paying attention to? Health, command of the fundamental processes, ethical character, worthy home membership, worthy use of leisure time, and there's one more. There's one more. Well, the one more will come to me. But look, already they were ahead of what we're doing now. Yeah, worthy home membership. What do we mean by that? Worthy use of leisure time. What do we mean by that? Do we do anything about it in the schools at all? And when we're talking about health, not just teaching people the parts of the body, for example, we do something about childhood obesity. We do something about exercise and nutrition. So you could go back to those cardinal principles and have a sounder foundation for curriculum than we have now. That was 1918. And I'm always proud of the fact that the cardinal principles were written by a math teacher.
I have to let you know, I've been in higher education 25 years, and it's odd for me to use a microphone because I'm an old coach, even though I appreciate your take on sport. 40 years ago today, I was 9 years old back at Kent State University, actually involved in their lab school as a fourth grader when the students were actually shot on campus. And you had me reflecting a little bit about that time in my life because I think it was one of the greatest turning points in my life, that love-hate situation. And I wanted to set that up because it was an active conversation with a lot of my former high school friends today on Facebook. Where were we at the time at Burger Chef, or we were shopping with our mothers? But it made me reflect even more so in your conversation about schooling and the passion and the care and the love. And I never had a grade from kindergarten up through 6th grade. I mean, like an A, B, or C. We just didn't have grades at this lab school. In fact, we met with our teachers and we were rated with a dialogue if we were working above our potential, at our potential, or below. Mm-hmm. And then whoever...
See, it still turned out pretty good, right?
I am excellent. I feel really good about that. And I share that a lot of time with my graduate students that still to this day, at 49 years of age, I have a challenge with grades. And we're ending the term right now, and I'm grading. And there's a core piece in me that takes me back to the university school and this idea that grading doesn't have to be the way it is now, and I still struggle, and I have no answer.
Of course it doesn't.
So being the great scholar you are and the caring person you are, how do you deal with this, the basic thing that we can't get away from, and that's grades?
Yeah. Well, again, this is something that we could spend a lot of time on. At Stanford, I did not give grades. Well, the first year or two, I think I did, because I didn't know that we were allowed not to. as soon as I found out that we didn't have to, that there's such a thing as instructor's option, pass, not pass. All of my courses from then on were taught that way. Now, when I say that, there are people who say, oh, there you go, no standards, right? No standards. Well, one of the years that I got the teaching award, the student who at commencement introduced it said, she makes us write our papers over and over. I knew I was getting the award when she said that. Of course there are standards. I mean, gee, when I send an article off to a journal, it doesn't come back to me marked A, B, C, you know. It comes back with constructive suggestions and some goofy suggestions, and you have to sort through those. So you don't need grades in order to have high standards. What you need is a cooperative effort to produce the best possible product. At the high school level, I agonized over this for years and finally decided on a method that I still think is the right method, and that is that kids are not going to be allowed to go on to Chapter 2 until they've mastered at least the elements of Chapter 1, because you get this cumulative failure. And so you get a, I used what might be called, what did I call it? A cumulative grading. You start at a certain level, and every test you pass, you go up. And that eliminates test anxiety, because you know you have nothing to lose by taking a test. You can only get something higher. So when you have to give grades, you could use a method like that, where the method that was cooked up somewhere in the Midwest called contract grading. If you must give grades, then use contract grading so the kids know exactly what they have to do to achieve a certain grade. And you keep working on this. Teaching is a lifelong moral quest. You never get it exactly right, but you keep trying, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly that this grade business is just, it's out of hand. You certainly don't need it at the elementary school. Somewhere along the line, you need to be able to tell people, yes, you are good enough at this that you can plan a career around it. Or, you know, just do what you have to do on this. What would you really like to do? Something else. But thanks for asking that.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes. Can you hear me?
2 minutes left for one last question. Here you go.
Hi, my name's Elva Grijalva, and I just have a very simple question. This is my first year teaching, so I would want to know, what advice do you give to, I guess, first year teachers or brand new teachers out there?
Advice to brand new teachers. The advice I give today to brand new teachers is different from the advice I gave 10, 12 years ago. Now I would say, be sure that you get into a school where you can use your professional creativity and judgment. Remember when you go for an interview that you can ask questions. You will be asked questions and you'll have to answer them, of course, but you should ask questions. If the answers to those questions tell you that you're going to get into a rigid system where everything is prescribed, where you've got to teach by a script, and the kids are treated like data, don't take the job. Go somewhere else. It might even be that you'll have to go to an independent or private school for a couple years in order to find out what teaching is. See, it breaks my heart to say that, because I love the public schools, as they should be, but I would not want young people I'm fond of to go through what a lot of young teachers are going through today, see. So that's tough advice, but I feel I have to give it.
Okay, that concludes our show today. Thank you all to the audience members for coming, and thank you especially for Dr. Nel Noddings for attending. Thanks so much.